Howdy y'all, Michael here. Today is Wednesday, May 13th, 2026.
Yes.
I'm getting the year right finally. It's only May, and we're going to eat some ramen at Hoshi Ramen. And before we go do our errands that we have to today, looking forward to the Ham Fest called Hamvention, starting it starts Thursday, right? Friday. It opens Friday. We'll give you a little sneak peek of what we can with tomorrow. But let's go eat some ramen. Come hang out with me. Chris got the standard Con soup, which I love, and I love the softball leg that comes with it. I got the same thing, but it's a spicy version of it. So we're gonna see how this works out. Alrighty, first bite.
I took a piece of the
I'm gonna take my first bite. I'm gonna take a little bit of the pork here. I like it. I like it a lot.
And it's healthy. It doesn't get any help.
See, what I do with spice is such a cute ringtone.
Paul said it's waiting at the gate.
But what I like about spice is it makes you feel more full.
Yeah,
you got spice.
Yeah. Apparently, Paul is practicing his Morse code while he's waiting. Oh my god, I just put all of that in there. Oh my god, it's so good.
How does everything taste? Good,
Everything looks
yummy.
fantastic, looks great. About to take my first bite. I eat ramen like an American.
More like an Italian.
That too. You know that. Yeah.
I'm still finishing out my broth, and it was actually pretty good. Can't feel my lips, they're tingling. But I noticed over here, they got a lot of board games too. So this is a cool hangout. I would come to this place definitely again. I mean, good food and good atmosphere and just real friendly people here. A few hours later. Chris had to move on back to the house and take care of some stuff, or the Airbnb we're at, but I'm at the United States Air Force Museum, and they have a memorial park out here. And I don't have much time out here, and plus they close about 5 p.m., but we're gonna go inside and check this place out. It is absolutely free of charge. It is just adjacent to the Air Force base out here, and I believe this is the main museum for the Air Force. Tons of stuff in here, including presidential airplanes, rockets, fighter jets, anything that goes up in the air is here. So let's go check it out. One thing I didn't prepare for was the cool weather. I have a heavy jacket, but I didn't bring any light jackets, and most of my shirts are short sleeve. So we'll tough it out. It's Ohio, it's not Texas. But I think Saturday they're saying it's going to be a high of 87, but you know, if it's anything like Texas, wait 5 minutes and the weather would change on you. And right when you enter, they have a dedication. The fame's favorite few who served in the 92nd Bombardment Group H and support units to those who served in the 1st and 11th Combat Crew Replacement Centers. 8th Air Force, World War II. May their dedication and sacrifice always be remembered. This is dedicated September 13th, 1980. A very cool thing, and I've got to let my friend Gerald know about this. They have mobility scooters for free, to use for free. He told me all the places to go to get started, and he suggested to go to the very back. And I'm going to try to figure out how to get there in the back. But this is overwhelming. This is way overwhelming. So I gotta see how to get to where I need to go. Holy cow. Yeah, I kind of had a late start today. Look at this. Love the mustache on that guy. That's amazing. Flying open air like that, just hanging out in a little bucket area with a machine gun. It's called a Caproni. That's amazing. Man, I should have got here early this morning. I'm really rushing through this because of how late I got here. But I did give them a little donation. They gave me a map. Here's stripped down without the fabric, the dope cover on it. Bug. How amazing is that? Machine guns, water cooled on top. And they were actually hooked to the engine to where it only fire when the propeller was out of the way.
Hello visitors, and welcome to the National Museum of the United States Air Force. We invite you to join a free guided tour of Building 4, which features a full-size walk-on shuttle exhibit in the space yard, the first airplane entered the noise delivering POWs in our Global Reach Gallery, firework, the SR-71 in our Research and Development Gallery, and
Oh, this is a wind tunnel for models. How cool is that? So they made the announcement about Building 4, and I gotta go to the opposite side here. This is the early days section. The Army Air Corps, which became the Air Force. I still can't get over this thing, how big it is. It's massive.
Attention museum visitors, don't miss the giant screen Air Force Museum Digital Theater. Admission, schedule, and title information are available at the ticket booth near the main entrance. Limited seating is available.
All these men, in fact, that was by Curtis Wright, and Curtis Wright was the original North American.
Holy cow. Those drones are not tiny, that's a full-size airplane. Got a walkway into that one. It's the B-52. I hit my head on one of the antennas of one of those things, and it was pretty solid. Maybe not this trip, but some trip in the future when I'm here again. I'm going to come out here early in the morning and spend the day. This place just keeps going and going and going. The only B-2 bomber on display. Let me see if I can find the tour group that we're talking about. Well, I may have missed the tour, but I'm hoofing it. There's 4 or 5 buildings here. And I just can't keep up. The lighting in here is really cool. It's dark, but it's like memorable. Okay, I hear somebody talking, so maybe that's the tour. It may just be people talking. Okay, I found the tour.
In theory, these aircraft, the final one, the last patrons were theoretically to be retired either this year or next year, 26 or 27, I'm forgetting which year it was, how it broke. I've just seen on the internet, please believe what's on the internet. I've just seen on the internet where they did deploy some agents to the Iran here, and they were taking on some things, I think, in the Gulf of Hormuz, and so all of a sudden now it's kind of like, well, do we really want to retire?
It's a good airplane. That wasn't the one I was needing. He's wrapping up a tour, so we're gonna learn about the space side of things, and it's in the back of the building. So here I am rushing again. I'm gonna get my steps in today. All right, they got their little model rockets here. Yes, that is a joke. Look at the engine here. That's amazing. It's an ICBM. Made it to the tour group. How much?
Capsule. It was a hangar queen. It did not fly. It was cannibalized. Feel free to step up and take a look if you like. You will not find a single LED, LCD, microchip, microcomputer, anything like that in here. It's all fuses and bulbs, relays and wires and weldments and soldering. The capsule was small because the rockets at the time had a limited amount of thrust to put them up there. In fact, the first two guys went up and went suborbital. The third guy up was from Ohio. His name was John Glenn. He was the first guy to go into orbit for the Americans. He was launched on top of an Atlas booster, which is that big shiny booster you walk past in the missile gallery. The Atlas booster had a nasty habit. 2 of the previous 5 launches had blown up on the pad. So imagine you're John Glenn and you're standing there watching these things blow up, and you're knowing your turn's coming up and you're hoping you're going to roll the dice the right way, which he did. So he made 3 orbits. The last Mercury guy up was Gordon Cooper. He was a Air Force astronaut. He did 34 hours or 20 orbits strapped into this tiny little capsule here, which is about the size of a phone booth, which means nothing to some people that I'm looking at right now. Don't say it to Apollo. We had to do 3 specific mission things on Gemini. We had to be able to do orbital rendezvous, meaning they'd launch 2 Gemini programs about the same time. They'd find each other using their radar, navigate, what have you. First American spacewalks took place out of the Gemini capsule, and orbital rendezvous and docking. Those 3 technologies had to be perfected for Apollo to happen. Gemini 8 is launched. A guy named Neil Armstrong is the command pilot. He goes to dock his capsule with a previously launched booster. Come in, they connect, dock up, and all of a sudden its accommodation starts spinning 60 times a minute. Once a second, they're whipping around faster and faster. One guy's getting squashed in the seat, the other guy's getting pulled out of the seat. Pretty close to passing out. Armstrong gets them disconnected, figures out the problem is actually one of these thrusters is stuck on, causing the capsule to spin. Fixes that. Mission rules require an emergency re-entry, so they land in the Atlantic Ocean and bob around for 4.5 hours before a destroyer comes along and picks them up. And this thing was never very seaworthy, and the seas were rough that day, and I'll just leave the thought process there. But anyway, when NASA was trying to pick the first American astronaut to walk on the moon, they looked back to Gemini 8 and they said, this guy Armstrong, he's pretty cool, calm, and collected. So in no small part, that's one of the reasons Neil Armstrong was selected to be the first man to walk on the moon. Only Apollo launch that had 3 Air Force officers on it. So all 3 of the astronauts on Apollo 15 were Air Force. So this is on loan to us from the Smithsonian. Capsule's about 15 feet on the base, about 14 feet high, weighs 13,200 pounds. And that's about as much room inside here as in your modern day minivan. So when I give school groups, I tell them if you want to simulate your own Apollo mission, get the keys to Mom's Honda Odyssey, find 2 of your buddies, climb in, lock the door for 2 weeks, and see who smells the best at the end of that trip, okay? That's about what this must have been like here. Anyway, how do I know the capsule's been to space? See this charring here on the bottom? When the capsule re-enters the Earth's atmosphere, it's flying at 25,000 miles an hour. It hits that air at high altitudes. It creates a plasma cone that creates around the vehicle, prevents radio communication. 4,000 degrees of superheated plasma is trying to chew its way through this heat shield. Because we're not actually looking at the capsule structure here. The capsule's aluminum. It's surrounded by this ablative heat shield that burns away. It sacrifices itself to keep the vehicle and the astronauts from getting toasted. So that's Apollo 15. 363 feet from tip to tail, 5 Saturn rocket motors down here. Each puts out 1.5 million pounds of thrust. The pumps that are pushing fuel into the engines at takeoff, if I stuck the inlet side of the pump in an Olympic swimming pool, it would be empty in 2 seconds. That's how fast fuel is flowing into these 5 rocket motors. We printed a couple little astronauts here to give you a sense of the scale of this thing. Where'd the other guy go? There it is. Okay. The only thing that came back from a Saturn mission, the Apollo mission, was that command module. Everything else got thrown away going to and from the moon. These days we have semi-reusable spacecraft, but back then this is how we made it happen. So while we were flying Apollo, we were looking to reusable spacecrafts, and we moved on to shuttle. And some of you have been up in the shuttle, not up, we're not going to go up there today, but we didn't win a full-size shuttle either. So what we have here is a crew compartment trainer. The first front of this thing here, from this bulkhead forward, it's a flight simulator. 5 of these were built and put in Houston. This is how the astronauts trained to fly shuttle. The cargo bay, which is represented by this open silver door here, was sized by the Air Force as much as it was by NASA. We knew we wanted to put classified payloads into space, so we worked with NASA to size the requirement for the space shuttle. One of the things we launched on shuttle was this DSS Department satellite here, which was a 1990s digital satellite designed to look for Russian ICBMs coming over the pole. So shuttle would take it up to about 130 miles altitude, would be plucked out of the cargo bay by the crane, and then this stage here is called an inertial upper stage, which gets you up to 22,500 miles altitude. When you're orbiting at 22.5, a very interesting thing happens. Your rotational speed around the Earth is the same speed as the Earth itself rotating. So your satellite's basically a fixed point in the sky, from our perspective on the ground.
Wow.
Which is great for spy satellites, weather satellites, GPS satellites, anything that needs to be stationary relative to the Earth as it rotates around the Earth. Another way we launch these is this gigantic rocket behind it. This is a Titan 4B, the largest rocket we have in the museum. This right here is a Titan missile in and of itself, and by itself this launched the Gemini capsules. But when you stick 300,000 pounds of solid rocket booster on this thing and an 86-foot long payload shroud, you can put 23 tons into low Earth orbit, which is about the weight of a school bus. So you can put a very large satellite into orbit by use of this. As I mentioned, this is a digital satellite. These cones up here at the top stare at the Earth and they watch for the thermal plume of an ICBM coming over the pole. So some optical stuff and some IR stuff here, watching for that missile launch. Film. The next set 20 miles of film on. That film is fed into the optics section here where the camera picture is exposed, and then it gets carried on a number of other bearings into one of 4 film recovery vehicles, one of which we have opened up here, and you can see the 2 strips of film in here. So 15 miles of film per vehicle. We exposed the pictures in space, but we couldn't develop them up here, so they had to come back to the Earth to be developed and examined. So when each of these modules was full, 15 miles worth of film was in it, it would detach from the satellite, be kicked out of orbit by a little rocket motor, and it would come down under a parachute. In about 10 minutes of global reach, we'll talk about how we can be the bad guys from getting hold of our imagery. Image resolution back then was about 4 feet, so I could tell a tank from a submarine, from a ship, from a boat. Today, the satellites that fly several hundred miles up can do license plate recognition from space in real time.
Wow.
So my very bad joke is if any of you have any outstanding warrants or traffic tickets in Air Force Base, now where you want to be parked with today. Luckily, here's the X-15. This is our first rocket-powered spacecraft because this thing actually could fly in space. 3 of these were built in the 1960s. We lost one in a very bad crash. We have one of the remaining ones. Smithsonian in Washington has the other one. It was carried under the wing of an X-15 to about 45,000 feet. It was dropped from the wing of the X-15, from the wing of the B-52. Pilot ignites a 70,000 pound thrust rocket motor. He has enough internal fuel for about 2 minutes of powered flight. After that 2 minutes of powered flight, he's flying a glider at 5 times the speed of sound. Okay. This one crashed, and the provision to carry these external fuel tanks was added, which gave him 4 minutes of fuel rather than 2 minutes of fuel. So you burn off your drop tanks first, you drop these, go the rest of the way on the internal fuel. 2 Air Force guys set records. One guy got 69 miles up, flying a parabolic curve, so he was the first American astronaut before the Mercury guys actually got their astronaut wings. He was wearing his astronaut wings. Another guy did a speed profile, just pedal to the metal, Mach 6.7, 4,500 miles an hour, which made it the fastest human being on Earth at that point in time. When you come in to land the X-15, you're flying a glider at 200 miles an hour. You're landing on a lake bed, on a skid on the back, and a nose wheel in the front. So no go-arounds. got one chance to do it, you better do it right. So only the best of the best pilots for NASA and the Air Force flew the X-15.
This thing is gigantic.
This is the GE93 engine that powered the XB-70, specifically designed for the aircraft with the afterburner going at 30,000 pounds of thrust. If you stand under the body of the airplane here and look out, you think that one of those engines is in Mach 3? They never. Okay. So step back here and I'll show you the only six-pack that's left for flight. I could be wrong. Right about now, it'd be nice to be wrong. But anyway, so this is the six-pack as it was called, and this is 180,000 pounds of thrust and it'll get you to 8 speed of sound. This is Air Vehicle 1. Air Vehicle 2 was lost in a very tragic accident I want to spend a minute talking about. General Electric, who made the engines, paid the Air Force for a day of motion picture and film photography. They wanted publicity photos of every GE-powered airplane in the Air Force inventory. Flying at 104 on one way, single engine, single seat receptor, drifted in too close to that formation point. To this day, we don't know why it wasn't. Where it is, whatever. Got snatched up.
Huge.
Only two are built for reasons we'll talk about in a couple of minutes, but Soviet Union spent a lot of money trying to figure out how to defend against this. Had it gone into active service at that time they entered Luftwaffe. This one up here that says USAF that's hanging from the ceiling, it's the Bell X-5, but it started life as the Messerschmitt P.1101, captured by 4 servicemen in a barn somewhere in Germany.
This one has movable wings that can expand out or slip back to the Delta formation. This is the Goblin. Basically, you drop it like a bomb, and then you can hook back up on the airplane that it dropped you. But it wasn't really that successful hooking back up every time. But it was a protection for our bomber, and it would hook back on the bomber. But he said out of 30 attempts, it got it done like 3 times. So didn't make the full production. But now they have airborne refueling, and that made up for it. It's the P-59, which was the first American jet. They actually put a wooden prop on the front of it to kind of fool people. But when the guy was flying it, he would wear a gorilla mask and smoking a cigar. So if he flew by other pilots, he just waved at them, and they didn't want to tell that story. They didn't want to be put in the loony bin of what they saw. A plane with no propeller and a gorilla flying it. That's a P-59.
Interceptor, fighter meaning interceptor. This thing would fly very high, very fast, and rather than trying to engage the enemy in a dogfight, it had the world's first functioning look-down, shoot-down radar developed by the Hughes Corporation. So the radar could look down from the belly of the airplane and see an enemy bomber sneaking in over the coastline. Drop a couple of nuclear-tipped missiles on him, call it a day. Okay? So its role was to shoot down enemy aircraft coming in over the coastline. 3 of these were built. One successful test took place. We shot down the drone bomber. Secretary of Defense McNamara canceled the program because he was looking for money to fund the Vietnam War. So only 3 YF-12s were built. Fortunately, 30 some odd SR-71 Blackbirds were built, which kept us out of a lot of wars we might otherwise have fought, because now we had good, accurate intelligence information about what the enemy actually did or didn't have come up against us. The ideal role of a reconnaissance airplane is not to get ready to fight a war, it's to find the information you need to not have a war in the first place.
Very cool. It's not the SR-71, it's the YF-12A, which was a fighter.
The missile
That was a precursor to SR-71.
Now this is known as Pacific Blue. It's a one-of-a-kind stealth technology demonstrator built in the 1980s. If you think about the stealth fighter, which precedes this airplane, look at a Tesla Cybertruck, right? It's got all these backlit surfaces, looks like a metallic cockroach. The way that airplane became stealthy is that when the radar came in and hit it, all those flat surfaces bounced the radar signature back off in every direction except back at the receiver. This thing has radar absorbing material and curved surfaces, which are much better at reducing radar reflection. And the same company that built this airplane went on to build the stealth bomber, which we have in the Cold War gallery, using the same shaping technology. But in the 1980s in Southern California, there were a lot of UFO calls. People would say, a large gray whale with wings just flew over my house. Remember we were looking at that film-based spy satellite over there in space? And I mentioned these packages came down under a parachute. They had a radio beeper in them. The white antenna on the nose of the airplane is a radio direction finding antenna. You would have 3 or 4 of these airplanes flying in loose formation somewhere where we knew that parachute was coming down, always over open water. The doors of the aircraft would be open like you see right here. These 2 yellow poles are extended down below the airplane, with a series of cables slung between them. The pilot's job is to put the airplane at the right point in space and time. That as this parachute's coming down, swinging through the breeze, okay, he's got to put his airplane at the right point to snag that parachute with this arrangement hanging down below the airplane. So think about the flight skills involved in that. This thing's dangling around, you're bouncing around, you got to get right there. You might get 2 or 3 shots at it before it hits the water. If it did hit the water before they could recover it, there'd be a rescue boat or a helicopter to try to fish it out of the water, because this is very vital information we want to get, right? If the capsule could not be retrieved or could not be found, there was a soluble plug in the film capsule that would dissolve in about a day, and the salt water would rush in and ruin the emulsion on the film. So we couldn't get the information. We didn't want the bad guys getting the information. A Canadian company called Avro, in the late 1950s, came up with a thing called the Avro car, which is going to be a high-speed, supersonic, high-altitude interceptor that, by virtue of its unique propulsion system and configuration, could fly all over the place, shoot down any of the bad guys around. 2 prototypes were built, flight testing commenced. Top speed achieved, 36 miles an hour. When they took the canopies off to reduce the weight a little bit, they got to 3.5 feet. So not a resounding success. It was very unstable. When it flew, and I use that term loosely, it kind of did one of these things in the air. It's called hubcapping or precessing. So they had to have guys with tethers actually hold on to the vehicle like you hold on to a horse to keep it from flopping over. Now, when I worked in research and development, which we call R&D, we used to say R&D stands for wreck and destroy. The other thing we say in R&D is fail early, fail fast, fail early. Don't get to the point where you're testing the prototype and discover it doesn't work. Well, this was not a fail fast, fail early.
This is the Air Force plane that brought the first POWs from Vietnam home. First 40 of them.
The original design spec for the airplanes to be able to carry an ICBM, twice in the car. But it would also carry helicopters, light aircraft, long vehicles, artillery pieces. If you were a tripper going to and from Southeast Asia, you probably sat in one of these red mesh seats for 7 or 8 hours. These 40 guys are loaded up the seats like this. We have some of the original seats here. One of my fellow docents, who is not here today, was the wing commander for this wing of this aircraft, and he had the honor of flying Hanoi taxi to the museum. The fellow on the tour, about our age, says, "I know, I was there." I said, "What do you mean you were there?" He was the son of an Air Force officer who was stationed in Guam, and he was a junior high school student. The day Hanoi taxi came in and landed, the ramp came down, and all these guys came out to meet their wives and children and what have you. So can you imagine staying there watching that little bit of history? You can't see it, but the hair stands up on my arms every time I tell the story. To have seen that moment must have been something.
That's the Air Force One plane that took John F. Kennedy back home from Dallas to Washington, D.C.
The first purpose-built presidential airplane is this one right behind us here. Before this airplane, if the president was going to be flown someplace, they just took an aircraft out of inventory or what have you. Franklin Roosevelt, who was president during much of World War II, was the first president to have a purpose-built presidential airplane made for him. You may remember Roosevelt was a victim of adult polio. He could not walk, he used a wheelchair or crutches. But the press and the president had an agreement that they would never publish a photograph of him in a paper showing him in a wheelchair or crutches. He's always behind a desk or he's in a car or whatever, okay, standing at a podium. So the question became, how do we discreetly get him into the airplane without the whole world seeing him, being carried up the stair ramp? So they built an electrically powered elevator into the airplane. He'd be placed in, this is a duplicate, he'd be placed in this wheelchair, rolled onto the belly of the airplane, brought up into the elevator, and put in the airplane discreetly. Now, where we're all standing, that's plain as day, right? So there'd be a bunch of Army Air Force guys standing at what's called port arms with their weapons like this, blocking the view. Members of the press saw this being practiced where you're standing. Said, what kind of sacred cow is this airplane? All these guys are standing here guarding it. Well, Roosevelt heard that or was told about that. So what did he name the first presidential airplane? Sacred Cow. This is the Sacred Cow. That's the name it had used during its entire history as a presidential transport. Roosevelt died in office, Truman took over, flew on Sacred Cow for the remainder of World War II.
This is Eisenhower's plane.
Not go by the Air Force One call sign, goes by its tail number, 6505, 6000, etc., etc.
So like Eisenhower, this was his plane.
This silver airplane behind me is a Lockheed Constellation. I think it's the prettiest commercial airplane ever built. I have some personal bias toward that. My dad was a mechanic for the airline communities, and as a 6 or 8 month old, I sat in his lap as he taxied these around Idlewild Airport. Take your kid to work day. Oh, we haven't today. This is Columbine 3, one of the 3 constellations flown for President Eisenhower. He was a pilot, by the way. And he was on board Columbine 1 taking off out of Idlewild Airport one day in the 1950s. The tail number on his airplane was 8610. And American Airlines Flight 8610 takes off out of Idlewild about the same time. Air traffic control calls 8610, climb and maintain 5,000 feet, whatever the call was. Both airplanes acknowledged the command. President of the United States, 5,000 feet above New York City, 133 people on board another Lockheed Constellation above New York City, same altitude. Not a good thing. Co-pilot of Columbine comes up with the Air Force One call sign as an idea. It takes about 6 months to work its way through channels. From that point on, as you said, when the president's on the airplane, it's Air Force One. A couple of fun trivia facts. President Nixon resigned office in '73, climbed on board this airplane. Remember this picture, right? And was flown to his home state of California. He was still the President of the United States when the airplane took off from the ground. It took off as Air Force One. Somewhere over Missouri, Gerald Ford is sworn in as President on the ground. The airplane lands as 26000. The President's not on the airplane anymore, so it's not Air Force One. They actually changed call signs in flight. Lyndon Johnson would be flown to his ranch in Texas on board this little Lockheed Jetstar. His nickname for this airplane was Air Force One Half. Finish our tour by going through this beautiful airplane right here. This is a BC-137 military drone that flew around the world with Boeing 707. And this is the first jet-powered presidential airplane. Eight presidents, starting with Kennedy and ending during the Clinton administration, used this airplane. The BC-25 that's being flown today, which is a 747 variant, are the same airplanes that were flown during Clinton's presidency. Came on board to do that. So they're getting a little longer. The most famous flight this airplane ever made was on November 22nd, 1963, because we're going to go up in the airplane that took Kennedy and Jackie to Dallas and brought his remains and her back from Dallas that same day. When we get up in the airplane, we're going to be about halfway back by the wing here, and there's going to be a duplicate of this photograph right here. You're going to be standing where Johnson was sworn in on the ground at Dallas the afternoon of November 22nd. Some of us remember that day somewhat clearly. In the photograph, we have President-elect, President-to-be Johnson being sworn in. His wife, Lady Bird, standing over here. Local Texas judge they found to come on board the aircraft. She didn't have a Bible. They found a book of Catholic hymnals in Kennedy's luggage, so she was sworn in on a book of hymnals. Standing on Johnson's left, the widow of about 3 hours ago was Jackie Kennedy. Some of you may remember she was wearing a pink brocade outfit that day. This is the jacket. If this was a high-def picture, there'd be spots and splatters all over it. Blood and brain tissue of her late husband. She refused to take the jacket off. She wanted the world to see what she was wearing. Okay? So we're going to go up through the airplane. We'll meet at the back. I will tell you right now, we have plexiglass covers here for our back safety. We have a little bit of feeling gauge here, folks. You're all welcome aboard, but if anybody's not comfortable being in this wide of a space, just meet me at the back, okay?
Make sure you're comfortable with it. They have this gate here because you're gonna have to shimmy through it. I'm not going in sideways or straight on.
Good communications.
Yep. That's what the upstairs 747 is. There's a galley.
Mm-hmm. High power stuff there. What kind of scope?
Oh yeah. Oscilloscope.
Mm-hmm. Hey. That's like anybody and everybody, right?
Right.
You could probably order a pizza if you wanted to.
I'm sure it's been done. I can see why they upgraded to the 747.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Cozy.
Tony telephones. I guess that's what that one room is, a glorified switchboard up there.
All right.
With all the radio contacts in.
Amazed that Clinton was flying this.
That's right. Really tight, tight.
That's where Lyndon Johnson was sworn in right here, with Jackie Kennedy standing right next to him.
So like a train.
But I am turned sideways to get through here. I guess this is somebody
Doesn't smell like a Navy
help
ship.
communication. It does. I smell those oils and all. Telephones are every tooth here. It's a very, very tight squeeze. That John F. Kennedy's body actually rode inside up here. Well, this is the first presidential aircraft I've ever been inside. And it's tight. It's very tight. There's the document and the pen that FDR signed to create the U.S. Air Force. This plane right here is part of the U.S. Air Force. Alright, we're going to go into FDR's plane. It's amazing that we always have these little gates we have to go through. That was very tight getting into Air Force One. I was there for John F. Kennedy through Clinton. But he just told us that when they retire the 747s, one of them will be at this museum. So that's pretty amazing. Gotta watch your head coming in this aircraft. That's what the front of it looks like. Guess it's McDonnell Douglas. It's a nice radio stack right there. I've played with radios that look just like that. Here's the galley. Got beds here. All ready to go with U.S. military blankets. Believe it or not, this one is not as cramped. And I'm not sure what all this was for. There's luggage. This is when he met with Stalin and Churchill. He took this plane. And here's some seats right here. More like a bench seat. There's a little table. And more bunks. Some long flights. Bunks coming down. And I'm guessing, okay, that was packaging and stuff. And this was the elevator. If you come on this chair, do not have claustrophobia. Okay, here's his office. So, how amazing is that? I thought this was going to be the elevator. But please watch your head. You can bonk it real good here. And that's the elevator right there. It comes through the floor. And here's the back area here. So pretty awesome to see this kind of history. It's awful tight. You really feel the breeze when you get out. That's Eisenhower's. Ike Eisenhower. Check that one out next. It's a pretty cool paint job though for presidential aircraft. Kind of looks like a bird, called the Independence. Some of these smaller ones are kind of bring in, but I like that they have the gates here. Make sure you can get in. So it's the Independence. Of course, watch your head. Once again, compared to modern day air doors, there wasn't too much to these. Come on in. A bit more modern. In here, looks like they had a clock in the middle of the steering wheel. I'm blanking out. The Boeing logo on it. Here's a radio stack right here. Collins. I have ham friends that love Collins. All Collins equipment in here. And this is the navigator. Use a dead reckoning computer. Some oxygen tanks. And here we start getting into the seats here. I'm telling you, the most claustrophobic one was the 707, or the VC-17 they call it. VC something, I apologize. Presidential cards. More seats. We got bunks. Another row of seats. Can you imagine here in the 1950s flying something like this? There's the galley right here. And trying to figure out what all that is. And I imagine that's where you store all your coffee. Gotta have a lot of coffee to run a presidency, to run a country. A map of the United States here. Sorry, I cannot get any broad shots because there's no way. And this looks like it's a bathroom. Is that a shower? No, that's the toilet right there. And then just get ready back there. At the very end.
In the kitchen.
Yeah.
So,
There's the soda machine.
this is more couch.
Can make that.
There's my phone ringing. I'll call right back. And that is the Independence. And this right here is the Columbine. And this is why they don't use tail numbers anymore. Because American Airlines have the same tail numbers as one of these airplanes. The story goes, and I thought he was saying it was this one here. You know, they told him to reach a certain altitude, and both American Airlines and the Air Force went to reach that altitude, acknowledged it together. So that's a problem. So whenever the president's on board, it will be Air Force One. When he's not on board, it's the tail number. And one of the things, one of the questions he asked here, and everybody's like, oh, there's 4, there's 5, there's 6 Air Force Ones here. And I said, there's 0. Because none of these planes are Air Force One. In fact, Nixon was flown, and he showed the airplane. It's on the other side here. of Nixon, and when he landed, it was no longer Air Force One. It was Air Force One when it went up, but it wasn't Air Force One when it landed. It was SAM 26000. So let's go up to the Columbine here, and the tight narrow gate. I think I can also have this one. There's a little oscilloscope of some kind. It must be radar or something. You can barely see in the cockpit there. Everything's well protected here, as it should be. But it's amazing how small these planes are compared to nowadays. You're having a full-blown 747. There's the galley. These galleys are getting much nicer as we move along. Oh, it's got a temperature gauge right there on the coffee. That's pretty cool. Here's the cupboard. And some oxygen tanks and I guess fire extinguishers here. They had beds here. I don't remember seeing beds in the 707 though. There's a bed that comes down just like a little train. A whole Pullman. Got a little carpet on top of the table there. I guess it's to hold your drinks in your cards when you're playing. Oh, look at that. A movie screen. A little projector, and it shows right on the screen here. So, and jackknife sofas. And departure and destination times. It's in the very back here. This is the restroom. And it's a lot bigger now. Got a sink and a little 2-space sink. A little makeup mirror right there for the First Lady. And here's the stairs right there. They'll go down here. And come out and see Kennedy's plane again. SAM 26000. And this is some memorabilia from Air Force One, the different uniforms. Some model of the 747 that's still in use today, but they're soon to be retired. New ones are coming in. And some stuff that actually flew on here. The cutlery, the glasses, M&Ms in a presidential box, electric shaver, presidential still on it. Some cigar boxes. Initials are JFK right there on there. From Johnson to Reagan. They had cigarettes just for Air Force One. Flight reports, perfume atomizer, dinner invitation and paperweights. Of course, we saw the plane card set up there. There's the lunch menu for Trump. President Reagan's seatbelt with the president was still on it. And press reference and his badge. His credential right there. This museum is huge, and there's no way I can go over everything in a video. There's no way I can go over it myself. I would say it'd take a year or so to even learn an nth of what's out here. So I do want to come back again. Unfortunately, kind of constraint for time, but huge building after huge building after huge building of airplanes, spacecraft, rockets, ICBMs, everything out here that you can imagine. Anything that goes up in the air is here, so you got to check it out on your own. And plan for some time there and get here early. Don't do like I did today. This is not a space shuttle, but it is a training platform for the astronauts. And this is going to be my last thing to visit. Okay, this is big. Obviously, this is not the material they use for the space shuttle, but it is the size of the space shuttle. Get the idea what the cargo bay looks like here. Some of the smaller satellites they have.
This little room here, this is the total working, eating, and sleeping area
Okay.
for as many as 6 astronauts for as long as 30 days in space.
They were pretty cozy, weren't they?
There are 2 sleeping bags, so you got 8 hours in the sleeping bag and had to turn it over to somebody else.
Okay.
And these 2 chairs, there would be rations in your locker. You would sit down here and eat your meals here and also work on scientific projects that you would have the stuff in those lockers to work on.
Oh, very cool.
Yep.
Didn't know about this room. I didn't know about this room.
Yeah.
That's how they set it up.
Yeah, this is the whole living area for 30 days.
Oh wow.
It'd be very good to get along with other human beings.
Yes, you did. Absolutely.
Here we've got our spaceborne porta potty. You see that white armrest?
Yes, sir.
We had to pull that over and hold yourself down on the seat. There's no
Right.
gravity to keep you in place there. Little things we don't think about.
There. Don't want to float off that thing. And their seats were custom made for each individual person, right?
I think so.
Yeah, they had to change them out per person.
But the main thing was you had to put your foot down under that strap and hold on to the armrest to make sure you didn't start floating off the seat while you're trying to take care of your business.
Okay, we're gonna go in the cockpit here. I'm getting my workout today. Working off that ramen I had earlier. And here is where you pilot everything. Okay, and that goes down to the room below. You just float down there. But a lot of close quarters here on the space shuttle. And it's amazing, the little side guards on the switches, just like they had on the Apollos. Just the same. If it works, don't change it. That way you have your finger right to the right switch and you're not flipping another accidentally. If you want to fly the shuttle here, you can crash it real easy here. I got a couple of the simulators here. That is a sliver of the Air Force Museum. And I want to come back. I don't know if I'm going to be able to do it this trip, but if I come to Hamvention again, I'm coming back out here. So starting tomorrow, we'll get some of the media credentials and everything ready for that, meet some of the vendors. Then Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, over 30,000 people are going to be there. So it's going to be a lot going on. I have a feeling I'm going to be overwhelmed, and I may not point out what you want to see there because this is my first time. I'm just trying to get the feel of everything because I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm having fun doing it. But for now, y'all take care, be safe, bye. Truly amazing to see.